Hello, Tom again. In this video, which is the third in the series so far, we're going to look at the Boolean data type. Okay, so the idea is to make sure we understand how the Bool data type works in C++. So I've already written most of this program. I'll just step through it with you. I've got a couple of short named constants that are declared. I need those later on for the main program. The main variable that I'm creating, that's a Boolean data type, I've called isSomething. Not a very creative name. Bool variables often begin with the word is because what a Boolean variable holds, at least abstractly, is true or false. And that's essentially how they're supposed to be interpreted. So a variable name that begins with the word is kind of lends itself to a true or false answer. So like our previous programs, I can determine how many bits a Boolean uses. You might be expecting it to be 1 bit. It's true, it's on, or it's off. It's true or it's false. But we'll find out whether that in fact is the case. And then of course it stores the values true and false. I want to find out what happens if I output true and false. You notice these are keywords, they've bolded up. In other languages like C#, for example, it literally would output true or false at this point, but we'll see what this outputs. Then the next stage of the program, what I want to do, displaying a range of characters, that's not right. You can see I've copied and pasted that particular comment. But what I want to do is I want to go through a bit of a loop, and I want to display certain numbers as Booleans, doing some typecasting, and just seeing what will end up showing. So I've got a couple of column headings. First, the decimal number, then that decimal number converted to a Boolean, and then it's not implemented quite yet. I want to output a string. We'll do that as a second phase of this program. I've just got the column heading there. It was convenient for me to do that. So I've set up a for loop, and I wanted to have a range. So I've arbitrarily decided I want this to loop from -3 to +3. So I want to see negative numbers, 0, and positive numbers in my range that I'm going through. I could have chosen a number other than 3. That's a nice small number that I think we're going to get the message from. So the two columns that I'm going to actually output are the counter itself. I don't have to put it in hexadecimal or decimal or anything. I'll just accept the default, which is decimal, in a field width of 4 to make it line up nicely. And then in a field width of 8, I want to output the counter typecast as a bool. So that'll be the true or false based on the counter. So I'm interpreting the number as a true and false value. So we're going to see the effect of that. So I'm going to go ahead and run this program. Okay, isSomething uses 8 bits of memory, so it's an entire byte of memory that it uses. The reason why it uses a byte of memory is because a byte of memory is the minimal addressable spot in memory, so it sort of can't use anything smaller. So a Boolean data type uses the smallest amount of memory possible. All right, so displaying some numbers as Booleans, you can say I didn't implement the string column, but my counter went from -3 to +3. And when I output true and false, you can see that up here as well, true ended up outputting as 1, and false ended up outputting as 0. And so when I convert these numbers, okay, you can see basically in this example, every number other than 0 converted to true. That might be a little counterintuitive. You might have been expecting negative numbers to be false or something, but that's not the way that it works. All numbers are true except for 0, is basically how that works. Now again, in other languages, if I output a Boolean, I might get true or false, but that's not happening. So what I want to do is I want to add a string column here that'll say true or false. So let's do that in the program. So I'm going to go up to the declaration section here, and I am going to add a string called truth. So it'll hold either true or false, depending on what I want to output. So then I'll go down to my loop, and before I actually output anything, I want to determine what that string should be. So I'll make a little bit of room here. We'll do this interactively. We're going to add that column. Here's my if statement. I want to set the truth string based on the counter. So I'm saying if counter. What the heck does that mean? So if counter, then truth equals true. So how do we interpret that? Basically what this is saying is if the integer counter is anything that's not 0, right? So if it's any number that represents truth, then this will be true. And obviously if it is equal to 0, then it will jump down to the else. Now I could be more explicit here. It might be, you could make a style case for saying if counter is not equal to 0 or something like that. That's a little bit more obvious what it means. Okay, but if counter actually does work. So of course then the last step would be, I'll just insert a little line here. In a column width of, let's say, I think 10 looks good. I'll output the truth string. Okay, I think that does the trick. So let's go ahead and run that. So it's added in the extra column, and you can see that it's corresponding to the value as well. So everything's true except for 0.